Welcome back, everybody, to hashtag Griff Sports. I am Joe Rutigliano, and I am joined by successful volley Griff, Roxanne Hernandez, who is the newest member of our team here at Griff TV. Roxy, welcome to the team.
Thanks a lot, Joe. What a way to start our first show back. We have a great show lined up for you today. We'll have an interview with Ice Griff goaltender Keegan Asmundson, as well as a full recap of all the latest scores and highlights from the most recent Griffs action. Let's start right off with the Griffs matchup with the Purple Eagles Wednesday night. Last night, the men's basketball team took on Niagara in a big conference and Battle of the Bridge matchup. It was all it was cracked up to be, while the Griffs gave a sold-out crowd exactly what they've been looking for, coming away with an 87-74 victory. Joe, what made this game so great?
Well, first off, two of the nation's top three scorers were on display last night, with number 3, Billy Barron, of course, who's averaging about 23 points a game, and the nation's leading scorer, Antoine Mason of Niagara. In the end, Mason ended up with 29 points, but Billy outscored him, adding 31. Right from the beginning, the Griffs were soaring in front of the loudest crowd they played in front of all season long. Jordan Heath had the first 5 points of the game as he hits this jumper to give the Griffs a 6-0 lead early, and they'd cruise to a 22-point first-half advantage. But the real story, like we said, is Billy versus Antoine Mason. Here's Barron hitting the first three of his first points of the game. Then in the second half, really things started to blow up. Barron and Mason collide, and the Griffs point guard takes a blow in the head, and he'd need 6 stitches above his left eye before finally coming back in, wearing an old Harold Washington jersey, bringing back memories from last year after blood spilled down the front of his number 12. Barron driving the lane there, 68-55. And how about Antoine Mason for 3, cutting the lead to 13. Mason gets the feed from Myers and cuts the lead to 10, and another 3 from Mason here. And Niagara had cut the Griffs lead to 8, but Billy Barron would not be denied. His 3 here stretches the lead back to 15, and that may have been the dagger. A minute and a half left to go now, and another 3 from Barron, his final points of the game. And it was really a special night for the Griffs, winning in front of a sold-out crowd and a great C block.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously last year's home game against Niagara was one of the best ever, since Niagara has not been playing as well this year. Do you think the game was as important?
Absolutely. I think you can't overlook any team in the MAAC, and I think that really specifically Niagara is a game that the Griffs need to put away, especially if they're not playing so well. And, you know, as far as the teams that we're playing right now, you look at games last year that Canisius could have won that maybe would have set them up better for postseason play, and I'd say Sienna's on that, and a win against Niagara would have been huge at home. But obviously that didn't happen, and we got the short end of the stick there. However, you know, this year, winning games against teams that aren't as good is going to be key. And so far, with the exception of probably the Marist game, this was a big win for the Griffs, and I think it'll continue. But Roxy, you know, the volleyball team did sweep Niagara this year, and how important were those wins for your morale?
Extremely. I mean, you know, they talk about Niagara not being as well for basketball this year. I mean, they weren't as well for volleyball this year. So what? You know, last night was a battle for the Griffs, just like it's been in my experience. You know, the past 4 years, we've not been able to beat them once, and that burned in the back of my head. But like you said, the rivalry is so deeply rooted that regardless, you know, having them supposedly stink this year, it's just an opportunity to prey on them more. And you hope to come out with the win, and we did this year, so hopefully the second half, the men can do the same.
Absolutely, and that would be quite nice as we show you a few highlights from the big W that the Griffs picked up at home during the fall. Now we're going to send it over to Studio B with Kyle and John, and they are going to talk about MAAC basketball and some power rankings.
Kyle Ferrara, John Langley in Studio B. John, after the game last night, as Joe and Roxy said, Niagara isn't what they were last year, but it was still a big conference win for Canisius. What are the MAAC power rankings in your mind looking like after this game, after last weekend's action? Let's start with the bottom of the conference first and work our way up.
Well, 10th is Fairfield. They've only won 1 game in the MAAC. They're not playing very well, and they're the bottom feeder. Niagara's at number 10, and they're simply just not the same team as last year when you lose your head coach, and Wanya Green was a key player. You're just not going to be the same team. Marist has been fighting back lately, but they're still toward the bottom of the pack. St. Peter's is a surprise because I thought they'd be more toward 5, but they're down there at 7. They're just not the same team, and beyond that, it's really a clump there in the middle with Monmouth at 6th. St. Peter's, they're all 3 and 5 in the MAAC, and it's really top-heavy MAAC this year.
Yeah, we talk about that middle of the pack, and the surprise team for me in there is Monmouth. Obviously, I wasn't too fair to them in our preseason poll. I had them dead last and said some mean things, but they're holding their own.
Yeah, they're a tough team. They've lost a few games, but they were right with them. They stuck with Manhattan for a while. They battled with a lot of teams, and obviously they beat Canisius after losing by 20 just a week before. So it's clear that they're there to battle. They've got a fairly young head coach in King Rice, and they embody his attitude. They're willing to fight. They're willing to do whatever it takes to battle. And no one really gave them a fighting chance, much like Quinnipiac, who we'll get to later, but they've certainly surprised some teams. They're not that great, but they're certainly a competitive team, and that's something we didn't expect this year.
Absolutely. And now let's look at what everybody's been waiting for, the top three. Manhattan lost to Fairfield, but then Canisius lost to Monmouth. Where are the Griffs in the top three right now?
The Griffs are number 2. And right now they're technically at number 1 in the standings because they're 7-2, but that's because everyone else plays on Friday. Manhattan's number 1 because they're just the most overall sound team. They've got the bigs. They've got Ramel Brown, who's easily the best defender in the MAAC. They've got George Beeman that, if Billy Barron wasn't playing out of his mind this year, would probably be the MAAC Player of the Year. And Michael Alvarado, who was their catalyst last season, and he's just their second option now. And then at third, we've got Quinnipiac, and that's a surprise, but they're easily one of the best defensive teams, and they're easily the best rebounding team in the MAAC. No one gave them a chance this year, and they're going to give everyone headaches because they're the best matchup against Manhattan. And if Canisius continues to not rebound the ball, they might wipe the floor with Canisius if Canisius isn't hitting their shots. So that's an interesting matchup. Quinnipiac is a matchup nightmare for the top of the MAAC, and don't sleep on them. They might win it.
They bring something to this conference that no team who was here last year, I think, is quite used to. And for more on the MAAC Power Rankings, be sure to check out Friday's edition of the Griffin. You can also see my column on where Billy Barron's game yesterday cements him in Canisius' legacy. Shameless plug. We're going to take a commercial right now.
We are back. Joe, the hockey team this past weekend, they were able to come up with the tie on Sunday, but they couldn't squeeze out the win. Do you think it was a disappointing weekend for the Griffs?
You know, I think it obviously it could have been worse, so they could have lost both games, but in hindsight, I don't think it was the worst thing that could have happened. I really think that, you know, you've got a big tie when you could have lost the whole thing. Good. The Griffs need to pick it up a little bit, though. They're in a little bit of a lull right now, and we saw that happen last year. They went on an absolute tear at the end of the season with, you know, Tyler Wiseman, Cody Freeman, Kyle Gibbons all producing quite a bit, and then also Tony Capobianco in goal. So, I mean, there's some work to be done. 4-1 on Friday against Saturday against a good Bentley squad is a good showing, but they need to pick it up a little bit. So, you know, tonight will be a great test for them against Mercyhurst, but, we've got still a ways to go, and I think, maybe a little mid-season crisis right now. The Griffs have time to pick it up. Everybody makes the tournament, so anything can happen, and we saw that last year, obviously. But it'd be nice if the Griffs, gave themselves a nice and easy road to go to the Atlantic Hockey playoffs.
Yes. Yesterday, Kyle talked with Griffs goalie Keegan Asmundson after practice and talked about his relationship with Tony Capobianco, as the two have been splitting time in goal for the Griffs.
Kyle Ferrara for #Griff Sports. I'm here with Griffs goalie Keegan Asmundson. And Keegan, you and Tony Capobianco have been spending a lot of time in net to start the year. How do you two get along on the ice and off the ice?
I mean, we have a great relationship on and off the ice, like you said. Being a goalie, it's nice to have someone to talk to. And Capo, we usually room in the hotels together, so we watch the same shows and talk about the same stuff. And on the ice has been great too. Showed me the ropes in his last year here, and he's kind of on the way out the door, so I'm kind of taking over him for next year, and couldn't ask for a better senior leadership out of him.
You two put up pretty similar numbers. Obviously, he started more games. You have a slightly higher save percentage. Do you consider yourselves to be on the same level talent-wise?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a friendly competition, so I want to be better than him, and he wants to be better than myself. But whenever we're out rooting against each other, we've been fortunate with playing the first night, not playing good as the second night as a team. So whatever goal he's been in, it kind of differed for that. So we don't really worry about the stats. I mean, our goal is to get a win for the team, and if I'm in or if Tony's in on whatever day, that's all we can really worry about and go from there. So.
Do you think the rest of the team notices any difference with each of you behind net?
I mean, physically I'm a little bit bigger, height-wise, so my pads are blue, his are white. Besides that, I think the team battle is pretty good. Whoever is in net, even when Adam Harris was in Vermont, doesn't really matter which goal he's in. Just the pads and the height difference, I suppose. So.
At some point, Coach had to explain to you guys, this is how they're going to handle the position this year. What did he tell you?
I mean, nothing really much different as last year. They said I was going to get a shot. Capo's a senior, he's a starter, so going in, I knew that was happening. I was the number 2, but I didn't want a lot to limit my work ethic and practice, so I'm just doing the best I can to make sure I'm ready for the weekend, and that should lead to the team winning, and that's the main goal. So,
did Coach give you any indication who's going to start tomorrow night?
Yeah, Capo will be in tomorrow, and he's going to get us 2 points.
Okay, and what does this game mean to the team? Obviously, it's been a year since you beat them for the AHA championship.
It's definitely a big game. They probably have a little bit of salt or dirt in their mouth. We were fortunate to beat them earlier in the year this year, so we're trying to do the same thing. And then it's kind of a one-game series twice, so we play Thursday and Saturday, and our goal is to get 2 points on Thursday, sort it out, and then do the same thing on Saturday.
Thanks, Keegan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. And Rox, tonight the Griffs take on Mercyhurst in a rematch of last year's Atlantic Hockey Championship game. And the Griffs are actually the only team to beat Mercyhurst in conference play this year. And that was back on the Griffs home opener. So what is your prediction for the showdown tonight at Buff State?
All right, well, as you mentioned, longtime rivals for the Griffs are Mercyhurst, and they were able to give them their only loss. So you hope that they'll come up and get a second win. You have Wiseman, as you mentioned, and Gibbons. Wiseman, a threat, especially when the team is shorthanded. Gibbons up for Hobie Baker Award. One of the nation's top players, I would say, in my opinion. 20 points, 9 goals. Wiseman, 6 points, 4 goals. I mean, like I said, you kind of hope that, the Griffs have some time, but you can't be too lax, and hopefully they'll be able to pull out of that lull tonight. Yeah,
and another thing, we've seen over, a lot of teams. For Mercyhurst is their power play is typically very productive, and what we've seen is you put Tyler Wiseman on the ice and he scores shorthanded goals. So I think that's something to watch for tonight's game is can the Griffs, capitalize on some shorthanded opportunities as well as their extra man opportunities. So it'll be a good one tonight. I'm going to say with Capobianco in goal. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be on tonight, and I'm gonna go with the Griffs W, 3-2. Hopefully, I mean, I'd love for a shutout, but we can't ask for too much. We don't want to get greedy. But we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Jordan LaBarber from the Griffin will be sitting over here, and we're going to talk Griffs track. We'll be right back.
There was one day that we had just done the cardiovascular unit, in class that day. And then right after class, I went over to the Vascular Institute, volunteered, put the scrubs on. And one of the doctors asked me if I wanted to see an open heart surgery. And so I said, yeah,
really?
sure.
I came into Canisius as a, obviously as a freshman, not really sure what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a digital media arts class, and that really just kind of jump-started, my career.
And I think being where we are in the city and in the world with the medical campus that we have here is really an opportunity that I wouldn't have anywhere else.
It's more than just academics. Meet different people. Go out and do things. There's so much more to college. It's an experience.
I instantly fell in love with doing video work, graphic design. I started pursuing more and more opportunities in the school, whether it was doing admissions videos on the sides. I did a couple videos for alumni relations, the president of the college, and then I actually got noticed last year, and they sent me over to the Philippines to create a feature-length documentary.
I lived with the host family while I took classes in Spanish with Spanish professors at the University of Oviedo, and I was a Spaniard for a semester, and it was the best decision I made as a college student.
And we are back, and this is Jordan LaBarber from the Griffin. And so, Jordan, we've had you on before. Tell us what the news is out of the Kessler Center.
Well, the big news actually happened over break, right before we got back, and it was the addition of track and field as the newest program to Griffs Athletics. They share a roster with the cross-country team, and they've already ran a couple events, actually, so it was a quick turnaround. The runners actually found out about it right as the winter break started. So it was even a quick turnaround for them. And, as far as I know, they're excited to be back out. MAAC championships coming up next month, I believe. So, yeah, it's, they're right into it.
So tell me, how does this affect, some recruiting things? What are they going to do? Are they going to kind of push for a few more runners, or what's the plan?
Well, I talked to Nate Huckle, cross-country coach, and the track coach is going to be in charge of both programs. And he's really said that a lot of runners that are serious runners want to train for the full year, and part of that training is competition. And so what this track program does is allow them to compete in the spring, and that's more preparation for the fall cross country, which is really what's important for this program. So that's going to help recruit a lot more, serious athletes, and I think you've already seen that because he's been able to tell some of the recruits he's already got, I'm working on getting this track program. We're going to be able to train the whole way through.
And that is a big recruiting pitch, obviously, for any,
absolutely.
Running, recruits. So are they going to be adding a field aspect? Because I know right now we don't have anybody. I mean, I'm not going to be warming up to throw discus or anything, but what's the plan for the field?
There will be no field events.
All
it's
right.
strictly long distance running. Mm-hmm. And, I asked Bill Merritt today, are you going to be adding in the future? Is there any plans? Maybe there's long distance running for now. And he said no. Truth is, Canisius just doesn't have the facility to, support that kind of event. Really, what this is really just an opportunity to build the cross country program. That's really what they're looking for. So strictly to help out the long distance.
Just kind of so that they can go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Okay. So. Thanks. That's huge. And also, another thing that we've seen, obviously trying to get the cross-country runners here. I know at my high school, cross-country was a big program, and I asked, some of those guys, would you want to come to Canisius? They said, well, there's no track program. So I think that's going to be big to really draw them in, and for the future, we've got a lot of plans out there.
Oh, absolutely. They looked at what a lot of other schools did. They mentioned Loyola. Schools have been successful taking this kind of approach. They said there's, the roster, they'd like to have about 20 men, 20 women each, Right now, I think they're about 16, 17, so they're trying to get that capacity. They really think not only will that help them meet that requirement, but with some really great athletes, adding to what they've already had. They made so many strides finishing second to Iona, which, isn't really like finishing second place, considering Iona's one of a national powerhouse.
That's essentially like winning the MAAC.
Exactly, exactly.
It's impressive nonetheless that they were able to do so well given Iona's and really everybody else in they're a young team, younger coach. I think this is a big step, and obviously Coach Huckle's doing a lot to really get everybody
in the right direction.
In the right direction. Mm-hmm. So Jordan, thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right. And we will be right back. Roxy will be back, and we will talk about the women's basketball weekend. Stay right there.
Wake the sun, tell him that I've begun to dream of things to come, and tell the trees not to look for me. I'm going to find some peace of mind. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
And we are back. Rox, tell us what happened on Friday morning at the women's basketball game.
Well, the women's basketball team was back at the Kessler Center this past weekend, picking up a huge 60-52 victory over Monmouth. The Griffs were led by Jen Morabito with 12 points, while Kayla Hooley and Tiana Mills both chipped in 11 points apiece. Jen Lennox gave the Griffs a boost off the bench, chipping in 7 points herself in front of a sold-out crowd at Kids Day.
Yes, ma'am. And on Sunday, the Griffs welcomed the Marist Red Foxes into the Kessler Center. The Griffs would fall, however, to the reigning MAAC champs by a score of 73-47. And this weekend, the women's basketball team takes the road. They'll head to Fairfield on Friday in Connecticut, and then they will take on Siena on Sunday, and hoping to pick up a couple of much-needed victories. Rox, Golden Performer of the Week?
Surprise, surprise. Billy Barron gets the nod this week with 31 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 stitches, and 1 bloody jersey.
I like that 1 bloody jersey part. And how about our golden play? This dunk from Chris Manhertz in the first half of the game gave the Griffs a 22-point lead and helping lead the way to a big Griffs win. Thank you for watching #Griff Sports. Rox, enjoy your first show?
Absolutely, it was great.
All right, we're glad to have you. Until next week, I'm Joe Rutigliano. She's Roxanne Hernandez, and this has been Griff Sports. Good night, everybody.
That's fantastic.